Introducing your cabinet co-chairs for 2023 and 24, Brett Tansman and Danielle Gross. Introducing your cabinet co-chairs for 2023 and 24, Brett Tansman and Danielle Gross.
Well, welcome back, Hebre. On Sunday, you all should have received a note to take a leadership assessment prior to this session. We hope you have all taken it, and at this point, as it is intended to help you understand where you are on your leadership journey and can function as a tool to help you decide which sessions you will attend today and tomorrow. Danielle and I took it. We're excited to use this as a tool to understand our own areas for growth and as a conversation starter with our professionals to help us find the right opportunities for further leadership development and to plan for the future.
When I took the assessment, I was expecting different results. In my own mind, I thought I had different strengths and weaknesses, but it was really interesting when I was able to receive the results. I saw that it was pretty even distributed my skills. So really, any of these develop sessions will be relevant for me, and it's really great to see where my own strengths and weaknesses actually lie. This next session is about you. It's about your leadership journey, your leadership story, and how you want that story to develop over the course of your volunteer life. Over the past 3 years, the Jewish Federations of North America has been investing in strategies to help lay leadership across the Federation continue to grow and develop their capacity to lead in today's world. In just a moment, we are going to bring up someone to the stage who might be familiar to many of us in the room, Shayna Chrysler, the Vice President of Lay Leadership Development at JFNA. Shayna is going to tell us a little bit more about the work of lay leadership development, where Cabinet lives, and then we will hear from Rabbi Mike Uram, Chief Jewish Learning Officer for JFNA, Julie Platt, Chair of the Board of Trustees for Jewish Federation, and Dina Rash, the Chair of Lay Leadership Development Committee and a Cabinet alum from Boston, class of 2012.
Good morning. Thank you, Danielle and Brett. I'm Shayna Chrysler, the Vice President of Lay Leadership Development for the Jewish Federations of North America. I want to extend my deepest gratitude to you all. The only way to ensure and sustain flourishing Jewish communities is by showing up and stepping in to lead. To effect change, to have our leadership truly matter, we need to continually develop our skills and our capacity to lead. And you have shown up to do just that. So you all have my deepest gratitude. Thank you. Now, I would like to ask you all to think of someone to whom you feel gratitude. Someone who positively influenced your leadership journey. Really take a moment and think about this person. And then take out your phone. Send that person a quick text or an email thanking them. Really do it. So we know who got us here. But what is leadership? And who is a leader? Leadership is an activity that mobilizes people to transform complex, adaptive challenges into opportunities. And you are the leaders, the change agents who cultivate and possess the ability to inspire the efforts of others toward the achievement of our shared goals. To lead effectively requires curiosity about yourself and the world around you, the vulnerability to admit what you may not yet know, and the willingness to learn. In Federation, leadership is only effective because of the partnership between professionals and lay leaders to help turn our biggest challenges into opportunities. This is why we're here this week, to get curious about our own leadership, to learn what is required of us to lead effectively, and to lift one another up and celebrate one another through our shared stories and experiences. Being a great leader for the Jewish community involves more than just the desire to lead. It requires having deep curiosity and empathy for the content and the context of Jewish peoplehood and the Jewish community. It requires being humble in developing substantive knowledge about yourself and how the Jewish communal world operates and connects. A leader must be grounded in the experience of what it means to be Jewish today and recognize the power of our diverse community to make transformational change. This belief is what led to the creation of the Federation Leadership Development Framework. This framework is based on research with hundreds of leaders across the community, including many of you, and helps us understand what is needed to grow our leadership and to make plainer and more intentional the ways in which we can achieve our goals. The values that ground our framework are Tselem Elohim, or the acknowledgement that we are all created in the image of God. The work we do is person-centered, focused on the leader and the value they bring to our community. Gedulah, or excellence, leading in relationship with others using influence and collaboration to achieve our shared goals. Achrayut, responsibility. We step up and take that responsibility in meeting the needs of our community. And Kehila Kadosha, sacred community. We take a community-wide approach in lifting leadership for the good of the Jewish present and future. A wise mentor of mine once told me that if it was good for me and my growth, it would be good for the organization and the community. This work is an investment in you and your growth. If it's good for you as a leader, it is good for the Jewish people. This is why we do this work. This is why we invest in creating strong, networked communities of leaders, from change makers to cabinet to National Women's Philanthropy, cabinet alumni, and board chairs and local boards across North America. Our hope for you over the next few days and over the course of your lay leadership experience in cabinet and beyond is that you continue to invest in yourself. When you push yourself to grow as a person, you will grow as a leader. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce to you my colleague and friend, Rabbi Mike Uram, Chief Jewish Learning Officer at the Jewish Federations of North America. Mike led Penn Hillel as the Executive Director and Campus Rabbi for over 16 years, where he was known for innovative ways of combating anti-Israel sentiment and developing new ways of reaching and engaging Jews on campus. He's the author of the best-selling book, Next Generation Judaism, How College Students and Hillel Can Help Reinvent Jewish Organizations, which, by the way, won a National Book Award, Jewish Book Award. He's a sought-after speaker and consultant on the changing nature of the Jewish community, Jewish innovation, cutting-edge engagement, and how legacy organizations can reinvent themselves in the age of millennials. From my own experience, I've seen how Mike relates to Jews of all backgrounds, how he connects and inspires people around Jewish life in new ways, and how he can make Judaism and the Jewish experience come alive for people who've not yet found their place in Jewish life. Mike's building new ways to help us all access Jewish wisdom to inspire and help everyone be more successful in their work. Please join me in bringing Mike to the stage for a conversation with Julie Platt, our incredible chair of the Board of Trustees, about leadership, Julie's own journey, and how she seeks to continually grow as a leader for the betterment of everyone. Mike.
So you all have an incredible opportunity to get to know Julie Platt, and it's part of what makes Jewish Federations of North America so powerful, is to have people like Julie. And I want to give a little bit of an introduction to Julie before we ask her some questions about leadership. And I didn't consult any bios or any long list of resume, which Julie has, but I want to just say, if you don't know her or have not interacted with her, Julie is the best. There are very few leaders or volunteer leaders in the world or in the organized Jewish community that have Julie's ability. We've known each other going back to 2005 The first thing I think that stands out to me is what Julie has done with her family. She has 5 children of all different ages, and I've gotten to know 4 of them very well, and they are kind and menschy and willing to step up and lead. And so something that Julie was able to do at home with her husband, Mark, created this environment. They created a next generation of wonderful leaders. She is a leader in all areas of the community. At JFNA, at the Foundation for Jewish Camps. She was head of the LA Federation, and she's a trustee at the University of Pennsylvania and part of founding the National Board of Governors for Penn Hillel that she and I worked on together when I was the director of Penn Hillel. And if you do get to know her, spend a little bit of time with her, I think the 2 things that stand out to me about Julie's leadership is, one, she's so disciplined. The things that are important to her, the people that are important to her, she shows up, she's focused. And there were times that Julie and I worked together where she had been in LA for something for one of the kids or the grandkids, and then at Penn, and then in Israel, and back in LA. And there's not a single moment of taking her eye off the ball. She knows exactly what she wants to do, and she pushes off the exhaustion and the juggling of all those different responsibilities to show up and be present in an incredible way. So please help us welcome Julie Platt. So I want to share one Jewish idea to frame this. There's a story in Exodus where the Israelites are battling the Amalekites. This is like the archetypal enemy of the Israelite people. And every time Moses lifts up his hands, the Israelites prevail in battle. And every time he lowers his hands because he gets tired, they begin to fail in battle. And I think what this shows is that to have a dugma, a role model, to have someone who is ahead of us in the leadership journey is an incredibly important way to form and grow in our own leadership. And so, Julie, we're going to ask you to share a little bit about your story and about your values. And we did a little bit of a pre-interview. And the first value that you talked about as being important to you is mutual respect. So can you talk a little bit about how that plays out between lay leaders and between lay and professional leaders?
Sure. And thank you all for the opportunity to be with you this morning, and thank you for your very kind words. It's been an honor working with you. You know how I feel about you. So you're all lucky to have Rabbi Uram in your midst. So I will say, sort of first lesson in leadership is I don't think there's actually any difference in how one should behave, whether it is a lay relationship or a lay pro relationship. And let that be a rule to you for the rest of your leadership days. The respect, the honor, the patience, the kindness, the compassion that you show for your lay leaders should be absolutely no different than those exact same values in the way that you deal with your professional partners. I am gifted every day by working with Eric and Shira. We operate in complete and full mutual respect, and I would have it no other way, nor should any of you. And sort of to take that, let me take it to sort of a micro level. So think about what that means in terms of the way you express yourself, both verbally and in writing. Imagine there should not be an email that leaves your computer that you couldn't imagine mistakenly wound up in the inbox of your mother. How would she feel about however you have expressed yourself in anything that discouraged you, disappointed you, that you felt uncomfortable or even angry about? Imagine how you express yourself, either to your lay partner or your pro partner, similarly verbally. Think about how you would sound if repeated to someone else, how you spoke, how you behaved, how you carried yourself. Let that be a rule to you always. And I'll take it even one more step, whether you are a male or a female. Think about how you express yourself, male to female or female to male. I, maybe surprisingly to some of you or not, in my roles both as chair of the Federation of Greater Los Angeles and as the chair of JFNA, have been the recipient of some behavior because I am a woman. It's unacceptable. Don't ever do the same. Each one of us is created in God's image, and should be treated the same, male, female, lay, or pro.
First of all, Julie, thank you, and great job connecting it back to Shayna's 4 values, Tselem Elohim, image of God. Do you want to, when you say that there have been moments where you've been treated differently because you're a woman, has it been sexual harassment? Has it been a double standard? Is it a tone? Do you want to be a little bit focused?
Sure.
There's so much swirling in our world with the Me Too movement that could mean a lot of things, but how do you see it showing up?
And I am not just expressing my own experience. I don't think she would be upset for me to say that the chair of the Los Angeles Jewish Federation right now is a woman, and I'm experiencing some of the very same things that I have. So I'm not unique in this. The supposition that I cannot be as strong, that I cannot handle challenges, that I can't express myself openly in either disappointment, encouragement, or criticism because I am a woman has been expressed to me more than once. I think, I don't know what descriptor that would be, but somehow the thought that I am not equally capable as a woman to a male person in the same position has happened on repeated occasions.
Great. Okay, thank you. And are there red lines that you think about when you, both in your own leadership or things that you've seen, are there ways to show up and behave that are absolutely out of the question? Are there, on the opposite, like the best practices of how you show up and lead that kind of lead by the best values?
So I'll put this into a practical place for you also. One of the things that Eric just knows by instinct, but I very much have shared with every professional partner that I have worked with is don't surprise me. I want to know the good, the bad, and the ugly. What I don't want to ever do is walk into a situation where I didn't know something that had transpired, either on a micro level or on a macro level. And again, that doesn't matter if it's lay leadership or lay pro or pro to pro. Don't surprise anybody. If there's a challenge, if there's something that's gone wrong, if somebody's made a big mistake, tell me first. Make it so that I don't ever get caught off guard, because I need a minute. I need a minute to process it and know how I'm going to be able to either face that person, respond to the situation, or try to help and partner in fixing it. So I would say transparency is the synonym for that. Transparency, always, in every situation. Tell everybody that you're working with, above you, below you, next to you, always tell you the truth. Don't sugarcoat anything. And similarly, share all the credit. None of us are doing this alone. It is absolutely unacceptable to me when I hear someone get up and use an I pronoun over and over and over. None of us are I. Nothing I do is by myself. I do it all with partnership with lay leaders all over this country and with pros all over this country who've allowed me to be in this position and to do the work together.
So, I mean, that's a nice tie-in. Like, the part of transparency is really about respect and building trust. And it's respecting that you can tell the truth to someone, they can handle it, and to think in advance about how someone's going to feel and react and putting them in the best position to lead. In our pre-conversation, you also talked a little bit Lashon Hara, about gossip. And I'm wondering how, and it's also an aspect of respect and dignity, but how do you see that affecting leadership in a culture, in an organization or a larger cohort like Cabinet?
Don't. Would that be fair? Just don't do it. If I've done something that has offended someone, or I've done something that I didn't realize the consequences of, tell me. Don't tell somebody else, and then let me find out. It's so much more hurtful to me. So I'm asking you, if somebody has done something here, if you've had an experience that didn't work for you, if you've witnessed something that doesn't work for you, tell the person. Don't talk about them behind their back. It feels awful. I am 66 years old. I'm still not over it. I don't want somebody to talk about me behind my back. Tell me what you don't like about something that I've done and give me the opportunity to respond. It hurts the organization for people to talk behind each other's backs. I promise you, it weakens us all. I've seen that sadly, in all that's happening on a global stage in the conversations about Israel. And I know that's not today, and I'm going to have an opportunity to talk to you about that, I think, on Wednesday. But we all don't agree on how to handle this situation. Eric and I are doing the very best we can to lead and represent you all on what is a little bit of a challenge going on in the state of Israel. But don't talk about what we've got wrong to someone else. So many of you, thankfully, have reached out to me directly to say, I see it this way, I don't see it this way. Eric and I have gotten a repeated email from one of our wonderful lay leaders thinking we're really not getting it quite right. I would so rather hear directly than hear that somebody told somebody that you got it wrong. Directly, not behind anybody's back, for issues large or small.
And can you say a little bit more, like, what's your style? And it's actually something I've seen you do really effectively, so I'd like you to share it. But if, especially at a moment where you're depleted and maybe really disappointed by what's happening, either something that a co-volunteer leader is doing or a professional leader is doing, how do you show up and give that feedback in a way that both lets it off your chest, but also communicates something that helps the organization succeed?
So I take a breath, I give it a minute, because my first response back might not be the way I'd like to be seen or heard. So I take a moment, I really think about it, I often write it down. I have been in conversations that you might think would be very familiar, but they matter too much to me to do it off the cuff. So I often have notes, I rehearse them, I think about them. I make an appointment. I don't ever actually catch somebody off guard with something I'm going to say that might not be the most pleasant. And privately, very privately, to allow them to recover from it. And frankly, me, I'm not a big confrontation person. I don't really like it that much. But if there is something that I don't think is shedding the best light on our organization, I try to do it privately, carefully, and after I take a big pause.
Yeah. And I think you can see in Julia's response that discipline, that it's usually, my guess is that when you're feeling it in the moment, if you don't take the pause, it might feel really good to fire off that email or to surprise someone and deliver that feedback. But that discipline of understanding what you need and maybe what they need and scheduling it with some distance allows you to do it in this. And I think you're also because you can take it, you also are great at giving it. It's very matter of fact, it's not personal, but it's about the issue, and it really hits home. In terms of transparency, I'm wondering if you think that there's a piece there also about transparency leads to organizational learning, and I'm wondering what you think the role of data and evaluation plays in learning to do our work better.
So if you have not learned about this yet, I'm sure you will, and I saw that there are sessions about this going forward. One of the things that I think we are all benefiting from already and will continue to benefit from is the great emphasis that Jewish Federations of North America has put on impact and data. That sounded so amorphous before, what does that mean? But we're actually learning so much about how to do what we do better, more effectively, more efficiently. We need to yield to data. And I am proud of the fact that, and Mimi Kravitz I know is here, who is our Chief Impact and Data Officer in partnership with Neil Wallach, who is also one of the officers of Jewish Federations of North America, to understand how much there is to be gained and learned from impact and data. We've just done this for the organization as a whole. It highlighted what city size needs more attention, what part of our work needs more attention. It's incredibly helpful and not amorphous at all. And we'll all grow and learn more by the emphasis and resources, both financial and human, that we've put behind impact and data.
Amazing. So I want to ask everyone, there's two more areas that I want to explore with Julie, and then we're going to open it up to questions directly to Julie. So I think there are two microphones up front on either side. So in about 7 minutes, we'll open up. So if you have questions, if you want to go deeper on something or take us in a different direction, please get ready to jump up for the last 10 minutes. So one of the other things, Julie, when I asked you, what are the most important things that you want to get out to the cabinet community, you actually talked about life and life balance, which in the way that I heard this is almost like you can't just be a great leader, that you have to be taking care of yourself as a human and a person and growing in order to be a great leader. And so I want to ask just a couple questions about how you balance the demands of leadership and taking care of yourself. So, like, how does it play out with family for you?
That's a really big question. So I'll say a number of things. I was just remarking to Eric that I'm part of what I would call the club sandwich generation, not just the sandwich, because I now have grandchildren that I worry about all day, and children that I worry about all day, and then very elderly father that I worry about all day. So I definitely have generational worries on top of the Jewish people. So I will say I'm not always perfect at it. I am blessed to have a daughter and son-in-law who are on National Young Leadership Cabinet, who are not here, and my daughter actually has COVID right now. So I'm trying very hard to be a very caring mother for her who is not feeling well. I have a father who's not feeling well. I'm trying to balance it. But the lesson in that, there's a couple lessons. Number one, it will never be the right time to be a lay leader. So if you are sitting going, I don't know, should I take this chairmanship or not? My child's going to middle school, my child's going to high school, my child's going away to college. I actually am not married yet. I'd like to really spend much more time cultivating relationships so that I might see myself in a serious relationship. I have a parent that I'm trying to take care of. I am here to say it will never be the right time. So just do it. But always family first. And that is my immediate response to anybody who can't show up at something, who cancels at the last minute. Family first. Your internal family first. Many of you have heard me tell this story, and I'll tell it to you again. When I was chair of the campaign in Los Angeles, at the time, my oldest daughter, who I just referenced, was 16, and my youngest was 1, and I have 5 children. And I had been out of the house what I thought was one night too many. And I was extremely weepy walking out the door. And that 16-year-old who I had left in charge turned to me and said, you take care of the Jews out there and I'll take care of the Jews in here. And actually, her first cousin, Irene, is a first-year cabinet member and knows Samantha, and I am so proud that she is part of you this year. But she now is a national young leader, and she got it by my example of you can make this work. It's just a balance, and it's not an easy one. I don't take it for granted. All of you who have children have left your children to come here. It's big. I felt it so much. It was so big to leave them. It won't be the right time, and we need you. And so I am expressing my gratitude to you for making the decision to show up and to be here, because it's always difficult. It's really difficult, but we can't do it without you. There is no substitute for you. So I applaud you, and I want to acknowledge the fact that it is difficult to balance, and that everybody will always respect your saying, I can't because something is happening at home. But for all of you, you did. And so I really am deeply grateful that you showed up.
Thank you. Julie, I'm wondering, you've been leading on a national stage for a long time. From what I understand, even when you were an undergrad at Penn, you were like chair of the UGA.
I was.
Half Shackle campaign or whatever it was, and leading back then. But what's your sense of like boundaries and privacy? How do you make sure that at some point you can say no, not just for your family, but also so that it doesn't take over everything? I imagine the more you do and the better you do it, the more requests come in.
So it's a really good question for me. I don't think it's a secret that I have this extremely public-facing family, many of whom are in the entertainment world. So privacy is probably even more important to me than you can imagine. We hold our privacy very close because of the requirements for so much of our life to be public-facing. So there is a lot of time, I don't think maybe more than any of you do, but a lot of time very intentionally removing ourselves from the public eye and removing ourselves from public service to make sure that we're all together as a unit, that we take time together, and that's really it's hard to imagine now, but we're 17, that's my immediate family. But we immediate family try to take some time to get out of everybody watching, particularly what a couple of my sons are doing and my husband, and to try to hold on to some privacy as best we can. But we have to be really intentional about it, because otherwise I can't tell you how many texts I get every day saying, can your son send this message? Can your husband meet with this person? And I'm used to it, and we try to say yes all the time, but we have to be really careful about boundaries. And so I'm not alone in that. It's just a little bit more intense for us, particularly right now. So I would encourage all of you to make sure you carve out privacy. It's hard because of our phones. It's so hard. The CEO of the Federation in LA is on a family vacation to Israel with his 4 children. I've gotten 100 text messages from him. So he's not able to keep the boundary fully. I encourage you, try as hard as you can. Honestly, if you're not Shomer Shabbos, be Shomer Shabbos. You know, I'm aware, Eric, and I love you and love working with you. When Shabbos is coming, I'm thinking to myself, I'm not getting a text from Eric for about 24 hours because it's Shabbos. And on the East Coast, so on the West Coast, I get like the day off starting earlier, like at 3 o'clock on Friday. Carve out Shabbos, even if you're not a Shabbat observer. Make yourself not answer or respond to emails for 24 hours. The greatest invention of all time is schedule send. Yeah. You can even write them if you can't stop yourself with a schedule send for Sunday morning. But try hard to just give yourself a little intentional boundary.
I love that, and I think my imagination is that a lot of folks in Cabinet are at the beginning of building these robust home and adult lives. It's not that you're beginning adulthood, but you're at the beginning part of like the next 20 or 30 years of adulthood. And I think one of the things that I found that resonates so much with what you said, Julie, is that nothing is given to you. It's not like when we're kids and there are winter breaks and summer breaks and end of the semester that mark these things. It is all on us to set those boundaries, to be intentional, and whether privacy means stepping out of the public light, or privacy just means like going on a date with someone that you love without all the busyness of leadership and work and family. Those investments, I think, are great ways to care and to continue to grow as an adult when you're responsible for giving so much. So in the last remark, I just want to ask you to say a little bit, you're a Cabinet alum, and when you think back about the beginning of the journey and where you are now, a few years after finishing Cabinet, what do you want Cabinet to know, whether they're first year or 7th year, about the most important thing that they can contribute over the next many years of their lives?
I'm going to say 3 things, but really fast. The first thing is, and I think you'll be surprised by my saying this, but I've said it publicly more than once, be sensitive to the people who aren't on Cabinet. I often find myself in rooms where everyone always introduces themselves as I was on Cabinet, and I see the wincing of the people in the room who are leaders but were never asked. So just be a little sensitive to that. I'm incredibly grateful I'm a Cabinet alum, but I don't always lead with it when I know that I'm in a room with people who never had the opportunity. Second, I am in a unique position that my sister, I am one of 4. My 2 older sisters and my younger brother are all Cabinet alums, and I feel incredibly grateful that we share that bond. The niece who I reflected on a moment ago, who is with you all as a first year, her mother finished Cabinet before I began, and then I was on Cabinet with my sister, and my younger brother was after me. And the reason I'm telling you this is my sister and I she was in New York and I was in LA, we looked forward to those Cabinet retreats so much that when it was over, we sort of had a pact, do we have to tell our families that it's over? Can we just go away and like pretend we're on Cabinet retreat for the summer? But the joy of sharing that at the time with women, the sisterhood that I developed, not just with my sister, but with the women that I was on Cabinet with. And I will just give you 2 thoughts about that. My son was on a concert tour last summer, and we found ourselves in Portland, Oregon, and he was sick, and so I needed to find an ENT. And don't you bet that the first person I called was my Cabinet alumna, And I said, you got to find me an ENT for my son. And that network, I am not afraid anywhere in this entire country, wherever I find myself, to call a cabinet alum and say, can you help me? Where's the best place to stay? Where's the best place to bring my children? We are, in my case, a sisterhood that rely on each other. My closest friends nationally, and who I rely on and ask to do things in leadership, still to this day, are my cabinet alums. And I just encourage you, following on what I just said before, I know it's not easy to come to retreats. Try to come to all of them. I know it's not easy to go on the study missions. Try to go on them. This is a unique moment in time, and you won't get it back. So use it, seize it, do it as much as you can.
Great, thank you. We have a couple minutes for questions. Any cabinet folks want to come up and ask?
Do not be shy.
Yeah, you can be frank and she'll be frank back. Great, and please introduce yourself before you ask the question.
Hi, I'm Marissa Langer. I'm a fifth year from Miami. Never been accused of being shy, so I don't think that's a problem. So I know a question needs to end with a question, so I wrote down some notes. So something I've been seeing a lot recently, particularly on Instagram, there's an incredible cohort of young Jewish activists and advocates on social media, particularly Instagram. And a habit that I've seen kind of come out is when one of them gives an opinion that's perhaps divergent or perhaps heterodox or even slightly divergent, that the others in those, and they're in a similar peer group, will kind of pile on them and sort of like publicly call them out on social media. And it's a little bit of an ick factor for me, what you were speaking about. So how do you, I'm going to read from this now. How do you see the interaction between the necessity for advocacy on social platforms, the social pressure to need to have an opinion about everything and call out culture even amongst peers? Is it possible and necessary to resist that pressure within a culture and society that places so much emphasis on it?
So Mike, I can imagine you're going to have something to say about this. One of my sons, and I really can give you a very personal reflection on this, and thank you for the question, has become an extremely loud pro-Israel advocate on social media. His name is Jonah Platt, and Jonah has become, with really a lot of training as well, but because he is an entertainment person, an advocate for Israel in an industry that's a little bit lacking, but not as much as before, to be honest. And he has trained us not to scroll down. It isn't helpful for his mental health. It's certainly not helpful for his mother's mental health to read the people that go on a diatribe against him. So I would first suggest what is to be gained, by the way, by scrolling down. If you see something that is something that you can support it. Otherwise, just keep your mouth shut, because what then ensues is a war on social media, and that actually doesn't help us. To play out a war on Twitter is not very helpful. It's just ugly. I think that would be the only word I would use. So use your voice. Use your voice. The more people that are posting in a pro-Israel fashion, all the better. But to respond to, elevate, give oxygen to the ugliness, I don't think serves anyone, particularly the person who's posted.
That's great. One of the things that we are going to be talking about throughout Cabinet is generative leadership, which is some of the Jewish values that undergird how to combat some of that kind of conversation. And one of the things that we can reclaim as Jewish people is the value of complexity over simplicity. Part of those Twitter debates and social media debates, it forces us into these binaries. You're for or against, you like or dislike, when these things require a much more nuanced set of complexity in order to change the world. And I think we can actually use the values that we talk about in generative leadership to almost be a litmus test for what kind of media we want to get involved in. And if it seems to be playing off of our anger, like think about all the lessons that Julie said about discipline, about treating people as if they're the image of God, not acting immediately but thinking about it. None of that stuff is at play in social media, and it brings out not the Julie Platt version of leadership, but the kind of the weakest and worst version of our leadership. So we can resist that And there's actually countercultural Jewish values to help us, which is great. So other questions?
Oh, I can't believe you're so shy.
Okay, great, yeah, come on up.
Go ahead.
And if you have questions, you can come. You can make a little line. We can get a couple at a time. Yeah,
Sort
go
of a
ahead.
comment and the same thing. I was never in cabinet. I was never asked, which was what you were speaking to. So I was finally asked 4 years ago, and so I took a position. But my real question is, do you have to have a title to be a leader? And so that's something I come upon, and I've reached out to, in my new position as board chair at Greater Metro West.
That reminds me of something I wanted to talk about, so I'm so glad you said that.
And something I do is, there's thought leaders in our community, and I've reached out, and some people have given me advice in my position, because it's not about me, as you have mentioned, it's about our community, getting the feelings of our whole community, and being a thought leader is just as important as having a leader with a title to me, and I appreciate all the support that I do and the people who give advice.
So you have made the case. You are completely right. I mean, the title is lovely. All of you, title or no title, are all thought leaders and contributors to the future of the Jewish world. But it reminded me of something I wanted to say, which is, if you have an experience, and I really want you to take this to heart, if you have an experience and it's an unpleasant one, you were on a committee and the chair of that committee didn't really respect you in the way you would have liked them to. You thought that a particular position meant something, but it meant something different. Don't give up on us. I have seen so many people who go, oh, I hated that experience, and they check out of the Jewish community. Don't give up on us. Every experience is not going to be a home run. I am here to tell you, I've been doing it for 40 years. I like some of them, I didn't like some of them, but I do like Jews, and I do like the Jewish people. So please don't give up on us. Second thing I want to say in response to exactly what you've just said, don't wait for someone to call you. That's also one of my pet peeves of Jewish leadership. Nobody asked me, nobody called me, nobody told me. So pick up the phone and say, you know what, I am in a moment where I have some time to give. How could I best serve this Jewish community? Please don't wait to be asked. There's not enough callers for all the people who want to be asked. Please just volunteer.
Love that, thank you. So let's take 2 last questions, and then we'll give Julie the final response. So you want to start over here?
Sure. My name's Alex Wolf. I'm a second year from St. Louis. My question kind of dovetails with what you were just talking about a little bit. With philanthropy these days and people my age, I feel like there's a little bit less of I'm doing good because I want to do good, and a little bit more of what's in it for me. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you're approaching the what's in it for me avenue to get people to really buy in.
Great, and we'll take the second question too.
Barry Gutman, second year from Cleveland. And my question is, you mentioned following the data. How do you get particularly established leaders to follow the data when sometimes that leads to courses of action or programming or things that may run counter to their preconceived positions or feelings or beliefs? And I guess that applies to younger leaders as well, but really anybody when the data doesn't jive with kind of how they think about things.
Great. So in both of those questions, I'm happy to say I think you're going to learn a lot more about both of them over the next 2.5 days. In terms of the what's in it for me, I've never felt more easily able to answer that than the work of Jewish federations over the past 3 years. If you reflect on, and you're going to learn about this in all these breakouts, what we did during the pandemic, what we are doing to fight anti-Semitism, what we have done to save the Jews of Ukraine and all those who have sought our help, what we are doing to get Russian Jews emigrated to wherever they need to be, what we're doing for Ethiopian Jews, and what we're doing for young leadership in North America. There's no better time than to say what we are doing for the future of the Jewish people, whether it impacts you directly or not, is something you can be incredibly proud of. You just have to know our story. You have to know our work. And I hope you'll go home and be able to say to someone, let me tell you what's in it for you. What's in it for you is going to sleep at night knowing that there is no Jew that needs rescue who's not being rescued. I sleep so well at night knowing that. Let that be your story. And in terms of impact and data, it's hard, and it may be a slow motion in the ship in whatever community you're from to get them to see, respond, and react to data. be patient, be really patient, because it's really obvious. It's revelatory. The data will help you to make the change that needs to be made, but don't think it's going to happen overnight. Particularly, I'm from Wichita, Kansas. I'm from a very small city. We're just trying to stay afloat. Change is really hard, and it takes time. Be really patient with change.
Great. Please join me, everyone, in thanking Julie Platt. And please welcome Dina Rashes, who's going to close out our session.
Hevra, it is an honor to be here with you at Retreat. I am Dina Baronke Rashes. I live in Boston, and I serve as the Lay Leadership Development Committee Chair for the Jewish Federations of North America Board of Trustees. I care deeply about creating spaces like this one where talented people can hone their leadership skills. I would be remiss if I did not take a moment to acknowledge all those who helped to develop the curriculum for today's program. Let's thank the exceptional JF&A Leadership Development Team led by Shana Chrysler, the Cabinet team, including Ben Schindler and Michelle Chayette, and Cabinet co-chairs Brett Tansman and Danielle Breslow-Gross. Let us also thank Julie Platt and Rabbi Mike Uram for that inspiring and very honest conversation, and Eric Fingerhut and Shira Hutt and the broader JF&A leadership team for their enduring commitment to National Young Leadership Cabinet. Picture it, Orlando, 2012. I was at my first cabinet retreat. The carpeting was replete with hidden pictures of Mickey Mouse. My class was 50 members strong, and we were seated together at our first session about the importance of infusing values and vision into our leadership. We had 2 instructors from the Disney Institute talk to us about the pioneering vision of Roy and Walt Disney, and as we made our way through a workbook that could have doubled as a coloring book, it definitely felt a little cutesy. But there were aspects of the Disney presentation that resonated, like putting behaviors into practice and leading with your legacy in mind. I do apologize that we don't have any workbooks today, no pages to color, and when you tire of my remarks, you cannot resort to counting hidden Mickeys on the ballroom floor. So I do hope that what I have to say today resonates. I want to acknowledge that being a lay leader in the Jewish community is not easy, and I admire you for stepping up and leaning into your cabinet experience, particularly at this retreat, where we are launching the first iteration of our leadership framework and our assessment tool. I hope that the conversations this morning, in sessions later today, and my musings on leadership will help you start to create your own personal leadership narrative. Jewish leadership is about showing up. As lay leaders, we need to be present, think about how we enter spaces, use our time, and apply our emotional and intellectual intelligence to address the challenges facing our communities. As lay leaders, we need to be inclusive. It is not enough to lead by example. We must be active in engaging others in the work of our communities. Furthermore, we need to think about the people in our communities who are not in the room. What kind of leaders do we need to be for them? As lay leaders, it is imperative that we remain curious, are transparent, endeavor to build trust, and hope that we are approachable enough to learn about the issues that people are most afraid to discuss. And lastly, as lay leaders, we need to be committed to growth. We need to be honest with ourselves and others about our strengths and weaknesses, surround ourselves with mentors and coaches, and be open to feedback. During your cabinet experience, you have access to incredible, passionate people. The people that have shared the stage today, the people sitting next to you at your tables. Leverage this network, grow these relationships. I promise your life and leadership journey will be richer for it. When I worked professionally, I was reviewed on an annual basis. I had the opportunity to benchmark my growth. In my career as a lay leader in the Jewish community, there was the occasional accolade, the successful completion of a fundraising campaign, or the satisfaction of seeing a strategic plan executed. But the opportunities to contemplate and iterate my leadership practice were not built into my leadership journey. So eventually, after participating in the Acharai Leadership Program through my federation, CJP, I developed my own practice of taking stock, writing a personal leadership narrative and revisiting it from time to time. My narratives are about a page long. They do not read like a bio or a resume, simply keeping track of roles and responsibilities I've held. Rather, they consist of honest critiques, both positive and negative, of my work over the last year or two. Reflections about personal growth, observations about the state of the community, the needs I have noticed, and how I hope to address them. I challenge you to consider adopting this practice. This practice has been helpful to me in myriad ways, but most importantly, over time, I could identify leadership opportunities I gravitated towards, figured out why I was compelled to seek them, and ultimately, it helps me realize that my leadership journey was incredibly narrowly focused. I had clung to certain types of leadership opportunities for far too long. I had shortchanged myself and missed out on opportunities to grow. I want to caution people to think about professional leadership and lay leadership differently. For those of you versed in the VC world, the idea of embracing spikiness, the notion that leaders or companies can be exceptional at a couple things and average at the rest, in my opinion, does not translate to the way we think about competencies of lay leaders in the Jewish community. I would argue it's good to identify your spikes, or as I like to call them, your lay leadership superpowers. But you need to work to become well-rounded and take more of a portfolio approach to growing your skills. Fundraising is my superpower. In 2002, when word spread that I had raised $18,000 between Yom Kippur and Simchat Torah in the nursery school parking lot from people who had never donated a dime to our shul to help build a new playground, organizations far and wide in the Jewish community took note. The leadership opportunities in fundraising and development presented to me were endless. I was selective and only took on leadership roles where my personal passions were aligned with the mission of an organization. That said, in the 15 years that followed, I had back-to-back chairmanships of several development committees and chaired 6 different fundraising campaigns. In 2015, after 15 years and hundreds of millions of dollars raised, I felt extremely fulfilled and very frustrated. I had come to the realization that my leadership journey was somewhat stunted by my success as a fundraiser, and I had managed to pigeonhole myself. My extreme focus and enthusiasm for fundraising prevented me from developing other skills. If I had hoped to take on more senior lay leadership roles at organizations I cared about, I needed to work on rounding out my portfolio of skills. In speaking with Jewish professionals, mentors, and friends, I endeavored to explore committee work and leadership roles in other areas and started to hone other tools in my leadership toolbox, like visioning and strategy, governance, budget and finance, endowment management, and lay leadership development. In preparing these remarks, I looked back at over a decade of personal leadership narratives that I had written. In 2011, when contemplating participating in National Young Leadership Cabinet, I wrote that the continuity of the Jewish community depends upon developing strong leaders who understand the nuanced intricacies of its constituent parts, which vary greatly across North America. I still believe this to be true. I am so glad that 12 years hence, through my role as Lay Leadership Development Committee Chair, I have the opportunity to help think about the ways in which we support lay leaders to meet the needs of our communities during increasingly complex times. I hope you will make the most of every moment while you are here and simultaneously think about how you want to show up for yourselves, for others, and for your community. Strive for growth and learning, practice listening and noticing in service of excellent leadership. I challenge you to start taking stock of where you are in your lay leadership journey and consider writing your own personal leadership narrative. I wish you a wonderful retreat and look forward to learning together over the next 2 days.
At this time, please exit the ballroom as the hotel prepares our tables for lunch. Plan to be back in about 15 minutes.